The Gemara had quoted a brisa that it says Surya. Surya is Aleppo. Aram Tzova, Aram Narayim. Regarding three aspects, it's the equivalent of Eretz Yisrael. And three other aspects, we equate it to Chutz La'aretz. So the Gemara goes to explain in what aspect we could compare it to Chutz La'aretz. Afra Tomi ke Chutz La'aretz. The earth of Syria, again, we speak specific location in Syria, not all Syria, is Tomi ke Chutz La'aretz. It contaminates no different than the earth rabbinically as Chutz La'aretz. Hamocha Abdo l'Surya k'moch b'Chutz La'aretz. One who sells his Canaanite slave, he's in Eretz Yisrael, sells it to the master in Syria. It's like selling him anywhere else outside of Eretz Yisrael. And we penalize the buyer, and he's emancipated. Hamaybe get me Syria. One who brings a get from Syria to Eretz Yisrael, Kimaybi Chutz La'aretz. That's equivalent of Medias Hayam. So that in those three areas, we're equating Syria to any other location outside of Eretz Yisrael. Shlosh Eretz Yisrael. Regarding three laws or aspects, it's identical to Eretz Yisrael. Chayeves b'maseh. The produce has to be tithed, ubishviyas, Eretz Yisrael. The laws of Shviyas apply. You're not permitted. Agriculture activity has to come to a halt, stop during the 7th year. So be tummy. If you chulin tameim, you're permitted to eat. Ma'aser taught me, no, see, they won't, but it still has to be tithed. It says chayeves for ma'aser. It doesn't say you could eat it. Rabbinically, it has to be burnt. Okay? Harotza likonis bo betaro nichnas. If a person wants to enter into that location betaro, he can. So the Gemara asks the question: if you're going in there, you can become contaminated. When you want to go there betaro, you could go in. V'akod etzod b'Surya. Person who purchases a field in Syria, in Aleppo, the koneh the parure Yerushalayim. It's like purchasing a field in the best neighborhood in Yerushalayim. That's the value of purchasing a field in Aleppo. Now Ram Tzova.
Why are they shaking Aleppo?
Well, because we're talking about this. David made a personal conquest. He conquered Aleppo. David. It's called Aram Tzova. Aram Narayim and Aram Tzova. He went and he conquered it. Drove out the enemy. So the Gemara is going to discuss a personal conquest. Well, you don't conquer something on behalf of Klal Yisrael. Is that considered a conquest? If Klal Yisrael, everybody agrees, if Klal Yisrael goes and want to expand, and because they need more territory, any territory that's conquered assumes the status of Eretz Yisrael, as long as it's done under the auspices of the king and the Sanhedrin. This David did it on his own behalf. He wanted to have his own, whatever, his own location. That was his personal conquest. This is the way Rashi learns. So the Gemara discusses kibush yochid shmei kibush. Is a personal conquest, does the Torah recognize that? And if it does, then it's Eretz Yisrael. Torah doesn't recognize it's not Eretz Yisrael. So that's what Gemara is going to discuss now. Chayeves b'maso b'shviyas Eretz Yisrael. The Brisa says that you're obligated to tithe the meiser, and it's subject to laws of shviyas like Eretz Yisrael. So evidently it's Eretz Yisrael. Ksovar. So the Brisa is of the opinion kibush yochid shmei kibush. The conquest, a private conquest, is considered a conquest. Therefore, it assumes the status of Eretz Yisrael. Okay? V'rotzli kones lo betaro nichnas. If you want to enter into that location, into Syria, in a state of Tara nichnas, so we're asked v'amrit afratomi. I mean, if you go there and you're not contaminated, but the moment you step on the earth, you become contaminated, right? So what I mean, if you want to enter Betaro, you're able to maintain your Tara. How could you maintain your Tara? Your state of purity, spiritual purity, you become contaminated because the earth is contaminated. V'amrit afratome, on that the more answers b'shida teva migdol. He entered in some type of box, so he was insulated. The box did not allow the tumah to penetrate, so the person is able to retain his status of Tara. We'll see Tosas on this. The Tanya, as we learned in the Braiso, Hanichlas le'eretz amin b'shida teva migdol. person enters into Eretz Amim, meaning into Chutz Loretz, in these various shaped boxes. Rebbe Matami, Rebbe says he's contaminated. The box does not insulate the person. Although it's an oil, and the Torah says an oil, tumah is contained within an oil, it cannot penetrate the oil. So we discussed this, we left off yesterday. Rebbe is of the opinion that an oil in movement doesn't function as an oil. An oil insulates the person. But over here, because it's in movement, it ceases to function as an oil, therefore the person in the box becomes contaminated. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Mitaher. Rabbi Yossi Yehuda says no, he retains his mitaris, he retains his state of purity. Only if it's moving. Only if it's moving. If it's stationary, of course. The Torah says something that's contained in oil is insulated from tumah, or it retains the tumah within it. Okay?
So what is the ground for arguing that when it's moving,
What is the basis for the argument?
Yes.
The Torah says oil contains spiritual contamination. So what is the conventional case of oil? Oil is a structure.
Right.
It's stationary. It's not movement. So that's where Rebbe understands it. Even though in its physical state, it's the same state.
Yes.
But when it speaks, it's stationary. So if it's not stationary, it doesn't function as an oil. Rabbi Yosef Yehuda says no. So it says oil. As long as it meets the criteria of oil,
Yeah.
so therefore either way, therefore the person is not contaminated. Okay?
According to
Rebbe,
Yosef,
you're insulated.
it's no problem.
There was a story just a few years ago. Rabbi Danosi,
He would say
you contaminate just a few years ago. The El Al, when it would come in for landing in Ben Gurion, the flight pattern was over a cemetery, a Jewish cemetery, not a non-Jewish cemetery. And because of that, the Kohanim would not fly. It's not because he had a body on the plane. It flew over the cemetery. So if you're over a Jewish cemetery, the contamination just rises. So if being in the plane doesn't insulate the people, whoever's in the plane becomes contaminated. So if you're a Kohen, it's a problem.
we're going according to Rebbe.
We rule like Rebbe.
Well,
We rule like Rebbe. We ruled that oil zorak is lo shmei oil. In movement, it does not function as an oil. That was a problem. So they changed it. They changed the flight pattern.
But while they're flying over the cemetery, there's an article in the paper that was making it sound
That what?
somebody built a tent and set in the airplane with a tent, some sort of a tent, but that was insulated.
No, that it would make sense. No, it would make sense. I remember that article. No, what? You know why it makes sense? No, the craft is moving.
Right.
The people, he's
stationary
stationed.
relative to the craft.
Right, so therefore his oil is not moving. It's not moving.
Therefore, if there's a mace in the marble hole, the same thing.
Same thing, so he'd be insulated from that.
The problem with the craft,
It's not simple. It's not simple. He's relying really on a heter Moshe. No, because it's not simple. Even though the aircraft is moving, but actually being on the aircraft, you're also in movement. The Gemara has a shaila in Shabbos. The Gemara says to be a violation of transporting, you have to have akira and anocha. You have to remove the object and bring it to another location. What about if somebody puts something on you? It's not you took it from a location. Somebody loads you up with something, and you start walking from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. So you change locations, but the object, regarding its original location, it's the same location. It's on your body. Its location didn't change. Are you in violation of transporting or not? So Gemara says, Akiras Gufa, Akiras Chayfetz. Then when you leave that domain, it's like you remove that object, even though vis-a-vis the body, it's in the same location. But leaving the location is like taking the object out of that location, bringing it to another location. It's something similar to this. Even though the aircraft is moving on its own, and you happen to be in the aircraft, but actually you're moving with the aircraft. Einstein, it doesn't make a difference, but the box is moving. It's moving within. But you can differentiate. So I'm saying like this: Rav Moshe has a heter. This is the heter with the plane, which He himself says it's a very, very weak heter. You know, the plane is made up of various, there's the outer shell, and there's you have the insert. So where passengers sit, they insert it, that's the cabin, and you have seats there. So the plane is moving. But this is like, it's similar to the tent within the plane. As a result of that, the Kohen is insulated. That's the heter Moshe says for Kohanim. And for many, many years, most Kohanim relied on that. Because they had no other means of air travel. But today, that you have other airlines that they don't have bodies on the plane, they don't. Only El Al has the body on the plane. And there's one flight that they don't, so the Kohanim take that flight or fly other airlines because of this problem. But one time they had no choice. Because the only airline was El Al who went to Israel, or most of the flights.
So, Rabbi, in the LL case where they changed the flight path, there it was that the plane was going over the cemetery.
Correct.
But that same LL flight that traveled to New York and over continental Europe, foreign lands, according to what we're reading here, it's automatically tuned. The moment you go outside of Eretz Israel. But are we talking about a difference between
That's rabbinic. Obviously, how does a Kohen live outside Eretz Yisrael?
It's a rabbinic. The one is
There's all rabbinic, and it's only if you would go back into Eretz Yisrael, you'd have to, if you want to eat truma, you'd have to purify yourself. You'd have to go to the mikveh. That's all you'd have to do. Even though they said it contaminates, we don't have a paraduma. So you mean to say, if a person went to Eretz Amim, he goes back, he's not permitted, he'll go to the mikveh, whatever it is. It's a different level of purification, a much lesser level of purification.
And we rule there that the public domain.
It's a suffix.
It's a suffix.
Correct.
So, and that's how they get by.
No, but Eretz Amim is Eretz Amim. Once you leave Israel, you can become contaminated. Let's say you walk on the ground. You don't enter into the other area in the box. So you're contaminated. So how's a coin? But a coin's permitted. He's just factually you're contaminated. We're not saying you're in violation of anything. It's just the question is, what is his state? Is he still pure or he's been contaminated? That's the... What? Walk on. Okay.
My experience about 20 years ago, I was flying from Tokyo to New York, and a woman died. She had a heart attack. So they wrapped her and put her in the front seat of the plane. How did the Kohen...
It's not a problem. Not a problem. Because you're only contaminated if the contamination is limited to the cabin. Here in movement, what at one end has no relevance to you if you sit in another part of the plane. Right? Because we say contamination rises.
Smoke, it gets to the top.
No, but it's all zoruk. If you say the plane itself is not an oil, so that means it doesn't contain. The smoke goes straight up. It goes straight out of the plane.
We're outside.
It's correct. If it's outside the plane.
So if the Kohen was sitting next to that person...
Walls in the ab, you have to distance yourself. But as long as the person was not within Dalan Amos, it's not a problem.
But if that plane was on the ground when that happened,
Once it lands and stops, then it's a problem.
So what do you do?
He has no choice.
so when they got off the plane,
He definitely.
he was definitely
Correct.
And what does he do?
No, he has no choice. He's an onus. What happens if a person is living in his apartment building and they say somebody died? What do you do? He's contaminated. What do you do? Torah speaks about a case of Nazir. The person's a Nazir, and all of somebody dies. So what happens? Whatever he counted is canceled. He has to start over again. Right? Whatever the process is.
So what does he do? Mikvah?
No. He's a paraduma. Today we have no paraduma. Right? We don't have a red heifer today. Okay.
But this contamination of the Jewish cemetery in Israel, it's endless, upwards?
Upwards. Endless. You could be in a
Satellite.
You're contaminated. Okay? Tameg. Now, this is important. Afir Rebbe Elo Beretz Amim Degozo Al Gusha Val Aviro. Al Suryo Al Gusha Gozo Al Virlo Gozo. Now, there's important tosis here. What does it mean? Where did Rebbe say that not only is the clump of earth contaminated, but even the avir? What's avir mean? No, it doesn't mean that. Because then the question is not answered. We're saying something else. In terms of Surya, we say it contaminates. So if that's the case, If you go in a box, according to Rebbe, as it says, if you go to Eretz Amim in the box, you contaminate it. Because oil zorok is what? Is not an oil. But yet, it was saying, even according to Rebbe, if you go in a box in Syria, you're not going to be contaminated. Why? It says, because they gozu, when they legislated the rabbinic contamination, it's only on the clump of earth. What does the clump mean? Only magum maso. If you touch it, come in contact, or you move it or carry it. But if you're over it, there's no avi. Avi means the contamination doesn't rise. Avosuri al gusha goza aviru lo gozu. Eretz Amim, not only does it contaminate in contact or in carrying, it's also the avi. Why is the avi? Why is the atmosphere contaminated? Because the contamination rises. In Syria, they said only the object, the clump of earth, in contact carrying, but the avi not. There's no avi. No, because so if you're above it, so as long as you don't physically come in contact with it, you're not going to contaminate it. Even though oil is not an oil, but factually I didn't touch it. There's no body. We're talking about the earth. They only gave the earth a status of something which contaminates if you touch it or you move it or you carry it. So let's say you're in a box and you go over it. So clearly you definitely did not touch it. You're not contaminated. What about Eretz Yisrael? Everything is Torah. Right? Correct.
Only Syria, only Magam.
Correct. But Tosas cites a Gemara, which is interesting. The Gemara has a Shiloh, where the Gemara says, the second Tosas on the page. Let's see what he says. El Bertza Amin Gozer al Gush Val Aviro. So our Gemara, when it says Aviro, what does Aviro mean? It means, does the tumor rise, does it not rise? So we're giving the earth the status of a corpse. Just as a corpse, contact, moving it, or being above it, it rises. Same thing here. Now it brings the sites of Gemara in Nossi. Very interesting. David, listen to this. The Gemara has a question over there. Here the Gemara says clearly, Eretz Amim, outside Eretz Yisrael, how do we treat it? Everybody agrees the Avir. Right? The Avir contaminates. Yet the Gemara in Nazir has a question, when they would go there on the gush means the clump, or the Avir. The Gemara says clearly, Eretz Amim over here, it's clearly they legislated even the Avir. So what's the Gemara's question over there in Nazir? Hachi Perusha, Mishum Gusha, Mishum Demala Gush, Hu, Vaso, Chachom Kibala Lames. Everybody agrees minimally, in Eretz Amim, the clump of earth is like the body, is like the corpse. And if you touch it, you move it, or you're above it, you come contaminated. That's the Avir which Al Gemara is speaking about. Therefore, if you're of the opinion that the oil is an oil, even though it's a movement, you can enter into Eretz Amim within a box. Odilma al Avir Atzmo. It doesn't mean because the tumor rises. The atmosphere is contaminated. So therefore, it's not a question of insulating you. The air you breathe is contaminated. It said the location is contaminated. It has nothing to do with the earth only. So if that's the case, going in the box is not going to help you. That's the Gemara's question in Nazir. The Gemara's question in Nazir, which says Avi, goes beyond the most extreme situation that our Gemara is discussing. Okay? Even if you're of the opinion oil zorik is an oil, you're still going to become contaminated. It's like you have the corpse in the box with you. You're in the same oil with it. When the Gemara says over here that gusha contaminates the clump of earth, that's only touching it. That's the question. Al Gemara says when they legislated this stringency, it's ma'al al gush, meaning if you're above the clump of earth, the contamination rises like a corpse. But in Syria, in Aram Tzova, only the clump, if you touch it, you move it, but nothing rises from it. So they didn't give it the full status of a corpse.
Given the fact that today we're all contaminated, why do Kohanim make such a fuss flying over.
Can I ask you a better question? You're making a fuss. According to your question, if a Kohen were all contaminated, a Kohen should be able to go into a cemetery. He's contaminated already. Right? Is the question better? And factually, this is the position of the conservative movement. Therefore, you can have a rabbi who is a Kohen, he officiates in a cemetery, and at a funeral, it's not a problem. Based on this principle. What do they rely on? They rely on a rivet. If something's contaminated, Mor uses a term, it's saturated with contamination. And it's reached its saturation point. So if it's reached its saturation point, you can't be more... That's the rivet. So they say, so according to the rivet, and they quote this site as rivet. This is the contemporary Rambam. Therefore, a Kohen today, of course, we don't have the paraduma, could go into a cemetery and contaminate himself with the dead. But what they don't know, there's a no Yehuda who explains that rivet. Because there are many contradictions from Gemaras. It says a Kohen is not permitted, if he's in the cemetery, he must go out immediately. So, but if he's contaminated, let him stay there as long as he wants. Because at this moment, he's reached the saturation point. Even if he goes out, he retains that same level of contamination. So what the Noda B'Yehuda says, what the right means to say, to be subject to Malkus, there's two things. There's an Issa D'Oraisa, and to be subject to Malkus. If you're not contaminated, you contaminate yourself, then you get Malkus. But if you're in a contaminated stuff and you expose yourself to contamination, it's an Issa D'Oraisa. That's how the Noda B'Yehuda explains the right. So therefore, for the same reason why the Kohen can't go in the cemetery, that's why he can't be on the plane. If the oil is not an oil, when it flies, the flight pattern is over a cemetery for the same reason.
So again, the first time he does it, he's subject to Malkus.
Malkus.
Issa D'Oraisa.
It's
Now the second
no.
time,
It's also Issa D'Oraisa.
The second time he does it,
It's Issa D'Oraisa, but he's not subject to Malkus because he's not going from a pure state into a contaminated state.
so what then?
He has to leave the location immediately.
But there's no penalty, so to speak.
There's no penalty in
no
court.
punishment.
There's no punishment.
No court punishment.
Correct.
But from a violation point of view, is the first time and the second time the same?
It's not the same because why is the first more serious? Because there you're going from a pure state to a contaminated state. The second, the Torah says, you have to have Kedusha. Kedusha means you cannot expose yourself to that location. That's the Issa D'Oraisa. For that you don't get Malkus. Correct, right. Two aspects to the provisions. That's how the Noda B'Yehuda explains it. There's a famous, in Tosis in Nozir, there was one of the Bali Tosis, his name was Rav Chaim Cohen. So the Torah tells us that that if a metal implement comes in contact with the corpse, it assumes the identical status as the corpse itself. It becomes avi avos. Meaning, if something comes in contact with that, contaminates it, to become an avatuma. Right? Normally you have gradations of contamination. And the farther it's removed, it's less. So normally, if a person touches a sheretz is the source. So the person touches the sheretz, what does he become? He becomes a rishon. He's one step removed. When you come in contact with a corpse, the corpse is the ultimate level. So what comes in contact, or is exposed to the corpse is what? It's called avatum. That's the avi avos. The corpse is the ultimate. One step less, that's avatuma. Okay? So now, it can become an avatuma whether if it's under the same roof, person's under the same roof with a corpse. Even though the person didn't come in contact, he's an avatuma. Let's say you have a metal cup, a metal vessel in that under the same roof becomes an avatuma. So what about if you have hardware? You have hinges on the door, becomes an avatuma. So a vessel you can purify. So let's say there's no house that somebody sometime in history didn't die in that house. So if that's the case, Reb Chaim Cohen says, let's take it from a pasuk, one of the Haftorahs. There's no house they could go into. Because if that metal hardware on the door, the hinge, or the lock, was exposed to the mess, it's navi avos. It's equivalent of the corpse. So what kind of contaminant does it emit? It emits identical contamination as the corpse. So if that's the case, there's no house I'm permitted to go into, which is not reality, right? Because factually Cohen could. So he explains. Now a Nazir, if he comes in contact with the dead, it cancels his Nazirus, and he has to start over. And he gets Malchus, if he does it deliberately. Now, when the Nazirus is canceled, what does he have to do? He has to be Megaleach. He has to shave his hair and start over again. So the Gemara says, the only time the Kohen is in violation of contamination, if it's a Tumah she'nosu Megaleach Odof. If the Nazir has to shave his hair to start counting over again, that's the provision of a Kohen. That level of that's what he's not permitted to contaminate himself. But Cherev Rekacholo, the metal implement which becomes contaminated, although it assumes the identical status as the corpse itself, a Nazir, that does not cancel a Nazir's Nazirus, his counting. Does not cancel it. As a result of that, the Kohen is permitted to contaminate to that. So although it's Aviavos, it's identical, but factually it's not the corpse itself. The provision is not to expose yourself to contamination, not of the dead. Contamination that emanates from the dead.
I thought, Rabbi, that if something is fixed to the ground, like these hinges are fixed, it's not a freestanding object. It doesn't take on the tumor, which then gets around the whole issue. You don't have to come onto this other concept here, which is a type of contamination, but not.
No. Anything which was Dovra Metal, everything, let's say a person makes a vessel and you attach it to the ground. What's the halacha? Now it's attached. Right? It still contaminates. Because we will, anything which is detached, you attach it, it still has a detached status. It's detached.
But the vessel was intended to be a freestanding object.
Where?
The hinges are intended to be embedded in the wall, no different than the wall itself. It seems that there's a difference here. Yeah. It's consumed by the structure. Why would I ever think it would be I could deal with it as a separate idea?
Okay.
In
But
actual fact,
let's talk about nails and screws. Forget about the hinge. No. You could use the same nail or screw in a movable. Doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be in a fixed structure.
okay, but once
No.
they're not designated. Once
I'll
you
give
put
you
it
an
in,
example.
they're
I'll give you an
designated.
example. There is such a position, what you're saying, that something that initially was manufactured to attach to the ground, that means, see, it has no function outside of functioning as in the ground. Then it assumes the same status as something which is fixed. But something which has multiple usages, even though you choose to fix it to the ground, it still retains its identity. You see, for instance, we're very machmir. A mikveh is built with clay pipes, because metal contaminates. So the question is, but the pipes they manufacture, it's meant to embed it in the ground. It should be part of the fixed structure. Yet you'll never find a mikveh anywhere in the world with metal pipes. You won't find such a thing. So the question is, why not? Okay? So the basis for the chumrah, it's a semi-chumrah, is because since pipes have multiple applications, and doesn't necessarily only in this context, therefore it already has its identity before you fix it to the ground. Right? So a pipe is more difficult to hear, because let's say it's a pipe which is made specifically for this. But a nail or a screw that you attach the hinge to the door, that same nail or screw, you could put into a movable. So that metal object already has an identity before you put it in the ground. So as a result of that's called tolish v'avkachibro. Since initially it was detached and you attach it, it doesn't lose its identity. If it has no identity, its identity is only fixed, then that's its identity. But if it has a prior identity, fixing it to a permanent fixture, that doesn't cause it to lose its identity.
Well, I seem to recall, and I'm sorry I can't cite, but I think we've learned together, something that is not pre-designated it has many applications, like the screw. When they made it, they didn't say it's got to be for a vessel.
No,
it's
no,
gotta
no,
be- It's
but it's different.
generic. Once I
See, what you're saying now
once
is
I
within the context, wait,
designate
that's
it,
with,
then it takes on
what
its-
you're saying, that's within the context of muktzah. That's within the,
That's a muktzah concept, right?
They're right, but this is a whole different concept. This is something which has an identity, because it has multiple usages, and now by fixing it to something which is affixed to the ground, you want it to lose its multiple usages because you chose to put it into the ground. It doesn't. Since it already had an identity outside of its present state, that identity is retained. You can't change its identity. But that's explicit in the Gemara. Cherev is metal. Doesn't mean steel. Any metal, any metal, no. Any metal is chol harei cherev. Okay?
There's no difference between the kli that's a pot cooking specifically, or
No.
the metal
Any
is-
kli, any kli, any
metal is
vessel.
a specific kli too?
So would you say the same thing about a light fixture that's made of metal that's hanging in the house?
No, see, a light fixture would be different. That would be similar to the pipe, where the pipe is manufactured specifically to
be
fix,
affixed.
to be affixed. Would it contaminate? Would not contaminate. Would not contaminate.
Because there's no other usage other than... when
Right,
it's
exactly.
attached.
Right.
So why is it clay pipe? So
Because cheres is not makabel tumah. And we're talking about it's open at both ends. You'll never find a pipe in a mikveh where there's a bend in a way where it can contain water.
So
It's always, at best, it angles around, but the water will never be accumulated. It's never like a U where the two ends of the U are upward. Because that's a problem, because then the water can be contained within that U.
but the clay by itself is
It's not, no, the substance not makabel tumah. It's not, it never becomes a kli. Metal doesn't have to, metal itself, even though it doesn't have what we call a base kibble, it doesn't retain, it itself is contaminated if it has any level of function.
So I have a solution here, Rabbi. When the hinges and the door locks are manufactured, the screws that go with them are manufactured specifically for attachment.
Good.
Okay.
So that's a question.
So that is good.
Wait, that's also a question. Even though that may be the intent of the manufacturer, but since those screws can have other usages,
So because the color and the match, you know, when
No,
there's
if-
an indentation, the manufacturer is making it for use with my object. The fact that you want to use it for something else, that's
Does
not
make-
the intent.
doesn't make this what your intent is, but factually, if it can be used, that's sufficient. I'm telling the basis for the chumrah. You know, what
But
you're
the
saying,
nails, I get the nails. Nails are nails,
yeah,
but these
I hear.
particular screws, they're decorative screws because they have to look, they're exposed.
yeah, I hear, okay.
they can be used anywhere.
But again, this is what Reb Chaim Cohen says, that the only type of contamination that the Kohen is not permitted to contaminate, it's only if the Nazir would have to shave his hair, meaning it would cancel the Nazirus. It's based on the Gemara. No, it's based on the Gemara. The Gemara says that. No, that's rabbinical. That's rabbinical there. If a Nazir goes in a box into Eretz Amim and you're of the opinion that oil zoruk is an oil, is that sufficient? Because the atmosphere is contaminated. So as much as you protect it, nothing rises, but it's not a question what rises, it's just what you breathe. You're exposed to the contamination.
So in the time when the temple stood, when these laws were very serious for
Yeah.
the Kohen,
Right.
what would he do if he went into a house where there
Not a
were
problem.
nails?
That's what we just explained. He becomes contaminated. Does.
But it doesn't require para aduma to
Doesn't
fix it.
require paraduma.
What does he
Just go
require?
to the mikveh. Just go to the mikveh, and he's not in violation of any. He's not in violation exposing himself. It's like Yisrael
No, but
exposing.
I'm saying he just went to the mikveh, and now he goes home. He's got to go back to the mikveh before he goes to the Temple Mount. Every time he's in a place where there are nails,
It's complicated. Complicated.
and so and the building of the temple itself.
No,
did
there
we
were no
say
nails. There were
there
no nails. No. Firstly, it's not only a Kohen, even a Yisrael. A Yisrael won't eat kosher. If he
Yes.
goes into a structure with the nails, and if somebody died there at any other time, that nail gives off tumah. That it contaminates. Halacha mishmusina. Halacha mishmusina.
Because if it's the same,
Correct.
nail,
Okay.
So, Rabbi, just one other question. When a nail is put into a wall, like, we see over here, you don't see the nails because they put
They're in the
plaster over
studs.
it. There's a covering, there's a plastic. Does that help the situation?
No.
Now, even the wood, they'll put the nail in, and then they'll put clay, and they'll paint over the clay. Is that?
Let's talk something else.
Seal.
Let's say you have, God forbid, a child embedded in the wall, the corpse. Right? They have the, what are they called? Catacombs. Right? They have literally, it's covered. The contamination just permeates the wall.
So
It emanates. Doesn't
help.
help. Doesn't help. Correct. Now, Tosei is a phenomenal question. It says, Gozu al gusha misham aviro, val aviro. Eretz Amim, as we explained in Al Gemara, not only is the object, is the clump of earth, contaminates touching or moving, but actually it's no different than the corpse, and what happens? The tumor rises. So Tosei asks from a Mishnah, the Mishnah says in Taros, in Olos, that we find that the clump of earth of Chutz La'aretz, of Eretz Amim, Tanan ve'elu mitamim b'magu mamasa. The Mishnah says these objects contaminate, touching or carrying, ve'mitam ba'oil. What are they? Etzem kisa'ora. If you have a bone fragment, which although it's the size of a barley, Eretz Amim. So it's a Mishnah. So the Gemara asks, so Tosas is, there's Rav Yaakov Mirulins. So how could the Gemara say that Eretz Amim is Matami not only Bimaga, but even Avira, is the equivalent of the corpse rabbinically? The Mishnah says, enumerates over there, things which only contaminate Bimaga, touching and carrying, and not the equivalent. And the example is Eretz Amim. The earth going outside of Eretz Yisrael, it's only if you come in contact. But it doesn't rise. So even if you hold old Zorak as lo shmei oil, it's not, you shouldn't be contaminated. The T-rates, the Mairi b'ofa bo michutz l'oretz, what the person, well, not something that went to chutz l'oretz. What about a person takes imported sand, earth, from chutz l'oretz, brings in Eretz Yisrael? What exactly is the status? Do we treat that as if you're in Eretz Amim? Or do we say no? That since the location is not there, it only contaminates contact and carrying, but that's it. That's who the answers. Rabbi Yaakov Orleans. That the Mishnah in Olis, when it says it only contaminates touching and carrying, it's not speaking where you're at Amim. You transport earth from outside Eretz Yisrael, brought it into Eretz Yisrael. V'amal olav d'lo mitami mishum avir asu gozru el lo mishum ma'il alagush. That's what it, so Tosas says, Ve'loshin Eretz Amim mashmakav. The Mishnah over there says, Eretz Amim is mitame b'magum masa. Eretz Amim is not earth. Eretz Amim, it seems to be the location. The Eretz, the location of Amim, is only mitame b'magum masa, but not oil. So we have to reconcile with Al Gemara, because the Gemara says simply here, everybody agrees that Eretz Amim is mitame b'magum, is avir. Achi shlom mairi kagol sheish daf o gesher. We'll continue.